Hello and welcome to another Parry's Pickups. Been picking up quite a lot of games recently, so we're just going to get on with it and talk about some PlayStation games this week that I've picked up. The first being Final Fight Streetwise, which is a fantastic game. Let's go out there and say it like that. It's really good fun. It's the modern equivalent of SI-scrolling beaten up. Full 3D movement, great controls, very satisfying. Okay, so the setting's a little bit dull. It's not as colourful and as fun as in the original Final Fights, those classic side scrollers from of old. So yeah, I don't like so much the more generic real world setting to this game, but the actual gameplay is incredibly solid. You've got a story mode and an arcade mode, so if you just want to play straightforward brawling, as I did, go straight into the arcade mode. But within the story mode, there's all sorts of missions to do and also upgrades to unlock. So yeah, that's got a lot of potential and makes it quite unique. So this plays really well. So if you see this around, don't think it's just a cheap throwaway Final Fight game. It's actually a lot of fun. So check that one out if you see it for a good price. I think that one was. I think that was from. Yeah, it was 50 kroner, so £5-6. Next up, you've probably heard me talk about this game if you listen to the podcast. That's Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Really great game by Lightweight, who made Bushido Blade. This is a very enjoyable. It's sort of like a brawler as well, not so dissimilar to Final Fight, but it feels a lot more refined, a lot more in line with the martial arts style of the movie. You can jump and glide across buildings, and there's a lot of great action and a really intuitive blocking system where you tap the block button in time with the opponent's attacks. I've not experienced anything like that before, actually. I don't think. Matt was saying there was another game that implemented that, maybe a one-on-one fighter. I'm not sure, but actually it manages to recreate the mood and the martial arts action of the movie very well. It's got full motion video cutscenes, clips from the movie, which is always nice to see in a game like this. Takes a while to get started. There's a lot of like little short cutscenes at the beginning, but then you get into it, and then it's pretty self-explanatory and challenging as well. You get attacked by multiple targets at one time. And there's a lot of you've got to get out of the way for a little bit. You've got fists and feet. You can play like that without weapons, or you can press the button to switch to using your weapon. And you have to kind of balance those out because you can only use your weapon for a certain time before it runs out, and you have to switch to the other fighting style in order to balance out those two things. So yeah, there's a little bit of strategy in there as well. Not bad, and for all I know, for me it was a very inexpensive game to pick up. If you see it and like fighting games and you appreciate martial arts and maybe you're a fan of the movie, then I don't think you'll be disappointed with this. I thought this was going to be trash before I heard it. Lightweight developed it. I know Lightweight have a lot of experience in the genre of fighting games, so very good. Next up, Lego Racers 2, which I picked up in Blue City, here where I live in Weiler. Blue City sell a lot of second-hand games. At the moment, they're doing a 5 for 100 deal, 100 kroner being around about £10 to £11. If you've watched these videos before, you kind of know the exchange rate between Danish and British money. Yeah, I can't work out any other conversion rates, as I only know the two from. But it's affordable, and this game, I think you'd probably pay more for it on eBay. Is it any good? Is probably what you're wanting to know. And it's okay, yeah. It handles great. First of all, and that's good for a racing game. I didn't find the tracks I played on particularly interesting, but I like the setup of the game, and there's some fun cutscenes, quite long cutscenes actually. But you move into this town and everything. You create your. Well, what's great first of all is you create your racer and you create your car, The creator minifigure part isn't particularly comprehensive, but when you're creating your vehicle, you can do a lot of building there and choose a lot of unique pieces and build them in any way you really want to, which is quite, well, I was quite impressed with it. You know, you don't actually see that level of customization in modern LEGO games. So I wouldn't mind seeing a sequel to this now. You know, maybe TT Games could develop a new LEGO Racers and they could actually bring back this great build your own vehicle system that they had in this game. So, okay, a fairly standard kart racer, nothing really to write home about, but nothing particularly bad either. So, if you like LEGO and you like karting games, you're probably going to enjoy this one. Now moving on to PlayStation 1 games, first up being 40 Winks, which is a fun platform game with a really great art style, really great graphics, very much reminiscent of those N64 classics like Banjo-Kazooie or Donkey Kong 64, anything Rare did on the N64 that was a 3D platformer. This, I think at one point was going to be on the N64. It never got released for that console, but it ended up on the PS1. And it really does look and feel a lot like an N64 game, strangely enough. It's reasonably challenging. Most of the time for the right reasons, sometimes for the wrong reasons. I had a predicament with the camera at one point, which made us a particular platforming sequence incredibly difficult to do. So, yeah, that's a shame. You know, it's a really good game, and all the other elements are there. But when the camera gets in the way, then that stops a good 3D platformer being a great 3D platformer. But if you like these type of games and you really enjoy those Rare developed 3D platformers for the N64, you might appreciate this. And I think it's one of the best looking PS1 games I've played. So do check it out. Inexpensive game as well, 25 kroner here in Denmark, very reasonable. Next up we've got a game which disappointed me slightly. That is LEGO Rock Raiders, which was kindly given to me by a friend. I've heard the PC version of this is very good, and I think that's where the recommendation originally came from. Play this because it's really good on PC. Unfortunately, the PlayStation version of the game isn't the same game, and it's rather disappointing. In fact, I couldn't even work out what to do. It's very zoomed out, whereas the PC game was like a real-time strategy type situation. This, with nice graphics as well, this doesn't look so good on the PlayStation. It's very zoomed out. You play a little minifigure and you have to walk top-down perspective, walk around and collect objects. But I collected 2 objects, faced with a stream. Didn't know how to get across it. I could see there was something that looked like a vehicle, but I could not work out what button it was to get in it. There's no tutorial mode, so that doesn't really help. I could have looked at the manual, but by that point I was like, yeah, is it worth it? And I looked up online, and yeah, it's not very well reviewed, unfortunately. But people love the PC game. So if you think this is going to be just like the PC game, unfortunately you'd be wrong. It isn't. It's a different game, which by the sounds of it pales in comparison. So a bit disappointing, that one, but a lovely thing to be given though, and I appreciate that. I will no doubt give it another go. Maybe I can find some enjoyment out of this title. We shall see. I think lastly on this episode we're going to look at a PS3 game. That's Mercenaries 2. This is a game you see just about everywhere. It was an incredibly popular game, sold loads of copies, but unfortunately the developer Pandemic did some great things, like Star Wars Battlefront series originally, and I think it did the Saboteur. I'm not sure. They did quite a lot of really well made games, and this, from what I played, feels like an older PS3 game, which it is. It wasn't there at the beginning of the lifespan of the console, it came a couple of years later. The big thing about this was fully destructible environments, which is pretty cool to behold as you get in a tank and drive through a village and destroy all the buildings as you go through. And it's fairly standard third-person action gameplay. It's explosive, it's fun, it's well made. The character feels a little bit stiff. I think that's purely the age of this game now. It does not compare to much later PS3 games, but it was particularly admirable at the time it was released, and it's a good bit of brainless fun from what I can gather so far. I've not played it for a heck of a lot of time, but yeah, plays well enough if you like action games. That's Mercenaries 2. Anyone who doesn't like action games, I think most like a good shooter, at least. I think that's everything for this week's episode. So thank you very much for tuning in. Hope you've found something there you might want to check out. One more game. How did I miss this one? This is actually quite good. SpiderMan Web of Shadows. So Web of Shadows, you may be more familiar with it as a 360 PS3 game. This is quite different from those versions. This is a side-scroller. I think it was also released on the 3DS. Not the 3DS, the DS, I think. Don't know if that version's exactly the same as this. I think that's slightly different, the DS version. The PSP version is the same as this one. And very interesting, from the off, you're asked questions by a reporter and you get several multiple choice answers. And it actually gave some depth to, rather than having a cutscene or anything, because the game doesn't, as far as I could remember, doesn't have any cutscenes. But you kind of get an idea of the character of Spider-Man, you kind of get some background to the story, what's going on. Yeah, I really quite like that way of doing it. There's a lot of character, nice, I think there was voice acting. I can't remember now. But what matters is the gameplay. It's a side-scroller, and you jump around, Spider-Man, you've got all your web-slinging abilities, and yeah, it's really good. I love classic side-scrolling platform games, and this seems to be like that. With, you know, obviously it's a bit of a brawler as well when you're fighting the enemies, and you've got several ways you can upgrade Spider-Man. But it felt like a very solid, well-made 2D Spider-Man platform game. And I had no idea it was a 2D game, actually, because, I mean, you can kind of see on the back that, at least in those two screenshots, that it could be a 2D platformer. A unique adventure developed for the PlayStation 2 computer entertainment system and the PSP. But I don't think it ever says it's 2D. Anyway, the selling point of this is loads of other superhero characters not necessarily usually associated with Spider-Man. You've got some X-Men in there as well. Pretty good. I mean, and I got it very cheap again from Blue City in their 5 for 100 deal. So now for the real ending of the episode. Thanks again for checking out the video. Hope to be back with you again very soon, because I have a few more games I haven't spoken about today, but I will save them for next time. So until then, have a great week in gaming, and I'll speak to you again soon. Cheerio.